welcome to today's episode of the BOWTIEGUY podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss chunking. What in the blooming of Kentucky am I talking about with this chunking? Well, you know what? One thing I tried to capitalize on was maximizing that instructional time, cutting the fat if you will, making sure that we utilize every minute that we're given to enrich, to engage, to improve upon the lives of the students that we teach. Here's a true story for you. There was a particular year, and this is 2015-2016, where I kind of had to go against the grain. And what I'm talking about, it was a shared expectation at my school where every single teacher, they would eat in the little teacher's lounge, and the kids would eat in the lunchroom. And I started doing the math, and I started thinking to myself, well, the kids get 30 minutes for lunch, and I know there's a little bit of fluff and getting in line and all that stuff, but you could bank on about 30 minutes for lunchtime. Well, think about this. Monday through Friday, well, they're guaranteed lunch. And in the state of Georgia, at least, teachers are legally guaranteed a 30-minute break for lunch. So long as, and I'm sure that there's like caveats here and there, but I started thinking to myself, that's 30 minutes a day, shoot. And that's Monday through Friday. So why don't we try to capitalize upon that time? That's 2.5 hours a week. And I started thinking to myself, the more I started thinking about having my kids in my classroom during lunchtime, and actually trying to utilize that time as kind of a structured, unstructured lunchtime, I love to employ and implement videos during that time, during lunchtime. And so I was maximizing that instructional time. And I actually added 19 instructional days to my instructional calendar by eating with my kids every day in my classroom. And we would watch approximately 20 minutes of a movie. We would get into a series. But whatever the case is, look, we were learning during lunch. And I don't know about you. I don't know about your lunch room, but I actually have a decibel meter on my phone. It's an app you can get. The decibel meter that I was getting a read on, Lord, it's loud enough to make you go deaf in the lunchroom, and it's just a perpetual problem with just wasted time. Kids go in, look, they don't even spend the entire time eating their lunch. They're too busy throwing their lunch. They're too busy dilly-dallying, and it's a universal problem in many elementary schools. But one thing I like to do, I'm not a control freak, but I just hated wasting time. And I would just look at those poor children goofing off, and then I'd have the monitors come to me and say, you know what? So-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. And I'm one of these people, look, if I'm not there, don't tell me about it, because I like to handle my business. I mean, and I hate getting on to kids for something that they did outside of my jurisdiction. Because like I said in the early podcast, it's very important to capitalize upon the relationships that you have with your kids. Now, let's talk about this chunking business. I utilized the time during lunch to employ a movie or to show something that we were learning about in science and social studies. And it'd be a common expectation. Of course, they would whisper or whatever, but look, they were so engaged even during lunch. They were eating their food, and you know what? They were paying attention, because what was on the screen was much more important than their buddy next to. I mean, seriously, there's an amazement in engagement. I'm serious. The more you try to think like the kids that you're teaching and put yourself in their shoes, hey, the more effectual and effective you can be. So I tried this experiment with one of my all-time favorite movies as a child. I don't know about you, but Homeward Bound in the early 90s wrecked me. And I recently showed it to my 7-year-old a few months ago, and literally she had tears in her eyes, and she was legit tore up about the story because that's what Homeward Bound is. It's a kaleidoscope of emotion. You have Chance and Sassy and Shadow, and you have a family going on an extended vacation, and they get lost. But I'm all about trying to integrate text. And as a reading teacher, I like to integrate as much text as possible, and I love to tie in as many disciplines as possible as well: science, social studies, math, grammar, etc. Now, one thing that I loved, I don't think, it's kind of like Shawshank Redemption, the movie, or it's kind of like Forrest Gump. You're not going to find many people who are like, oh, I hated that movie. No, it's universally acclaimed, universally loved. Homeward Bound, look, I have never found a person that's like, oh, that's the worst movie ever. Oh, it's terrible. No, everybody loves Homeward Bound. It's a Disney movie, and if you're thinking, You know, what in the blooming of Kentucky can I even show my kids these days? You have a legit concern, because rated G is almost an extinct species, if you know what I'm saying. But the good news is, Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, which was it was a motion picture that came out in 1993 by Disney. It's considered an adventure comedy. You'll be laughing, you'll be tore up from the floor up, etc. But it's rated G. It's totally appropriate for kids of all ages, and you know, that's something that it's a rarity these days. And there's a sense of innocence about the movie too. That, you know, and I'm gonna be honest with you, 1993 was when I was in kindergarten, and there was just a complete environment, spectrum of innocence at that particular time, and I love to share that with my kids. Now, I have done this for several years. What we'll do is we'll take little nuggets of Homeward Bound, we'll sit there and chew on it a little bit, and what I'll do, and look, and I try not to be too teachy, preachy, reachy during lunchtime. Look, that's their time, you know? You gotta remember, they're human beings too. They need a break from you as well. Like, I mean, we may think that we're thicker than thieves with our kids, but look, they need a break from you just like you need a break from them. So here's the thing. I would put up on my dry erase board non-linguistic representation. Some of you utilize thinking maps, Venn diagrams, etc. Now, these non-linguistic representations are research-based in that, especially when you utilize them in thinking, pairing, sharing, as anticipation guides, it's really just, it's an anchor. It's something that you can collectively do as a class. And so what I would do is I would utilize a bubble map or a Venn diagram to compare and contrast, but see, I would only fill in information about Homeward Bound, and I'd kind of leave a mystery as to what was going to be in the other contrasting column. Now, so what exactly are you comparing and contrasting? You're just watching a movie, you're thinking. Well, what a great time to employ a literacy skill, such as reviewing narrative elements, which is massive, reviewing genre, reviewing character, setting, plot, the character development within a story, climax, maybe the changes that characters go throughout a story. Maybe identify adjectives that describe there's a lot you can do. And so that's particularly what we would focus on. I mean, and I would just take like maybe just a minute or two after we would watch it. We were lining up with our trays to go back to the lunchroom, drop them off. And I would just kind of get some group think, some think tank. They would pool their resources, and you know, they would talk and they would tell me about the characters and all that, and we would add stuff throughout the day. It was scaffolding. But one thing I love to do with the Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, I love to drop the bomb on them that The Incredible Journey is actually a novel. Yes, and the novel was written by Sheila Burnford, and it further blows their mind that The Incredible Journey was actually a Disney film that was released, it's live action, in 1963, a lot like Homeward Bound. There's only, you know, there's several differences in that, you know, the Siamese cat in Homeward Bound, it's sassy, okay? The Siamese cat in The Incredible Journey is Sin. Okay, and then you have Bodger the Bull, which it's a bull terrier, but that was Chance in Homeward Bound. So, and then you have Luoth the Labrador Retriever, and that's Shadow. You can tell that Disney took a lot of creative licensing in, I guess, the innovation of Homeward Bound that was released in 1993. The Incredible Journey was released in 1963, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it is rated G, and it's a sweet movie. It's not all out in a bag of potato chips, and it doesn't really hold a candle to Homeward Bound, but look, it is a Disney movie, it is rated G, and it's kind of a letdown, but the kids are so engaged after they watch Homeward Bound because they know so much about the story that they can make inferences, draw conclusions, and what you're doing is you're adding to their schema. You're giving them just all kinds of tools for their tool belt in background knowledge that they can employ in a wide variety of disciplines throughout the day. And so utilize those non-linguistic representations. Look, they're research-based and they're tried and true proven. You know, like you can really see the benefit of utilizing non-linguistic representations. And you know what? Chunk. Like don't, and I had to ask for permission to actually do that, to take my kids to the classroom every day. But look, 19 instructional days is what I added to my calendar. Hey, it was worth it to me. Is it worth it to you? Thanks for tuning in with me, and we'll see you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.